Welcome back, Snappers. Marvel Snap has now been globally launched for 2 full weeks, and to celebrate, we've got our hands on another tier list, ranking all of the cards in Pool 2 from best to worst. This is going to be fun. Let's waste none of that precious snapping time and go through the format and then jump right into the tier list. If you watched the last tier list from Pool 1, you'll be familiar with the format of today's video. I'll be using not just my rankings for these cards, but rather the rankings of other well-respected Snap creators, average them all together, and place them in the prestigious S tier all the way down to the dumpster fire F tier in the context of just Pool 1 and 2. So the feedback from the first tier list video was awesome, and I heard you. I really tried to go the extra mile and provide you with loads of information, tips, and most importantly, more graphics, baby. Every card will receive a rank along with a breakdown of some, not all, but suggested card synergies and hot locations that work well for that card. Let's start with the 1 cost and work our way up. The Spicy Agent 13 is going to go in the B tier. She's solid with Devil Dinosaur in the Collector, and she provides a pretty good value at 1-2. Giving you any card in the game can be fantastic, with very little cons outside of something like Agatha, which is a lot like Ego if you've ran into that location. She works best in Pool 1 and 2 and gives you access to some pretty powerful Pool 3 cards. Ebony Maw will be in the C tier. He's one of the more big brain cards in the game. He can be very solid in ongoing decks, but the risk is often not worth the reward. Once you place Ebony Maw, you cannot play any other cards at that location, and he has to be played by turn 3. So if you can lay him down on turn 3, you're going to get some pretty good value out of him, or place him with Spectrum or a move deck to get much better value out of that 1-7. Look out for the Isle of Silence. This negates Ebony Maw's ongoing ability and allows you a free 1-7. For the context of Pool 1 and 2, Iceman will be going into the S tier. Iceman is borderline the best 1-cost card in Marvel Snap, not just in Pool 1 and 2, but also Pool 3. He disrupts your opponent by throwing off both their curve and combos that they want to play, and although you won't see what he's doing, trust me, he's carrying his weight. Look for locations to play him on Kamartage and cloning vats. Back-to-back S tiers, we have Sunspot, the perfect insurance policy. Sunspot is a freaking awesome card. He's not really 1 cost because you'll be using your unspent energy, but he allows you to play a much heavier weighted power deck with way less risk. He has obviously great scaling and will keep your opponent on their toes the entire match, as at any time you can add power to him. Placing him on locations that can be a bit tougher to reach is great because you can set him and forget him. Sunspot's a great way to win a lot of free cubes on turn 6. Bucky Barnes in the Winter Soldier is going into the A tier. Destroy decks finally find their home in Pool 2. Alone, Bucky is obviously useless, but combined with some powerful destroy cards like Carnage and Deathlock, you're looking at an incredible value 2-cost card. Play him on top of Death's Domain or other destroy locations for instant value, or I like to be cheeky and play Winter Soldier on top of Washington, D.C., as he technically has no ability and is going to get free power. Also, he's just a sick-looking card. Cloak will be going into the B tier as a 2-cost 4-power card. Is never really a bad play. He'll shine most in Pool 2 as movement decks are struggling a little bit, but they definitely have a bit more viability in Pool 2. You're going to use him to supercharge cards like Vulture, Kraven, and Multiple Man. If you haven't, you can see the deck up above, and that's going to show you everything you need to know on how to best use movement in Pool 2. And as an extra hot tip, if you like Angela from Pool 1, you can play her, scale her up, play Cloak, move the cards over, and you're looking at a Super Saiyan Angela. Say the line! It's Morbin time. Morbius will be going in the B tier as discard decks are far better in Pool 2, and Morbius is always usually a 2-4 or 2-6 value. Morbius is an excellent addition into those decks, and look out for the discard synergy in both Lady Sif and Swordmastered, followed by Blade to get the most value. Also pay attention to the favorable locations in both Onslaught Citadel and Sokovia for some extra power. Okoye, I feel, is a little underrated, and she'll be placed in the B tier. Every power increase and decrease counts massively in a 6-turn game, and the earlier you can play Okoye, the better, because technically on turn 2, if you play her, you're going to get a 2-cost 6-power value because of the +1 power in the rest of your deck. Okoye can give you a huge momentum swing with a location like Kamar Taj or Sinister London, and try your best to play her with a card like Swarm for a ton of extra benefit. The S in Scorpion stands for S tier. Sorry, that kind of sucked. But he's the main disruptor in Pool 2 and is a fantastic plug-and-play card with a ton of flexibility that can go into any deck. He's essentially the exact opposite of Okoye. However, he'll be giving -1 power to all of the cards in your opponent's hand. This can effectively hurt powerful cards like Iron Man like crazy. You'll be taking that 0 cost to a -1, doubling the -1, and it just messes up a lot. Again, don't sleep on disrupt cards. If you have a spot in your deck and you don't want to play Iceman, play Scorpion or, both of them. Next, we have Swarm going into the B tier. To the same point as Morbius, Swarm can be a lot more feast and famine. His biggest value can come on turn 6 by playing a massive amount of power with 0 cost. You see, if Swarm gets discarded, he'll create 2 clones of himself at 0 cost and 3 power. Again, look for some great discard synergy in locations like Sokovia or Wakanda Embassy that'll buff him up and make him even a stronger play. We are going to place the Silver Fox Collector in the B tier. He's going to have perfect synergy with cards like Devil Dinosaur, Moon Girl, Sentinel, and a whole lot more. The Collector is a set and forget scaling card that can pay off with some great value the sooner you play him. Again, for a great Pool 2 Collector's deck, look up above. Killmonger belongs in the S tier. The answer to your Khazar woes, Killmonger is freaking awesome to shut down Pool 1 decks that are focused on Khazar and Blue Marvel. I love to allow my opponents to scale up their Sunspot, play Killmonger on turn 6, and just ruin their day. So apparently all YouTube cares about is seducing the robot known as Lady Algorithm. If today's video is helping you out and you want me to take on the task of the daunting Pool 3 with just all of those freaking cards, go ahead and click the thumbs up and let's move on. Moving right along, we have Nakia, who's going into the C tier. Sadly, Nakia is just not a great card and borderline in the F tier. Essentially at max value, she's a 3 cost, 5 power for cards that you can't even hand select. Nakia got a giant nerf before global release, and hopefully she does get a little love down the line, as I'm a big fan of the Black Panther, and speaking of, dude, I can't wait for that card to come out. Really, the best value for her is something like Kamar Taj or, again, Sinister London to get double the effect, but then you're wasting a lot of board spots, so she's just not the best play. The big bad Rhino will be placed in the D tier, as he's very situational and is often never included in most decks. He's best used and really only used for destroying a location into ruins. This can be nice for something like Bar with No Name, where your opponent completely forgets about it and you get the last second win. But for the most part, there's just better cards that do more for less, like Scarlet Witch or Storm for a perfect example. Let's just follow him up with another garbage F tier card, and that's Sabretooth. Now, he does have very situational use, and destroyed decks people love. And you've got to try to use them in destroyed decks because there's not a ton of options in Pool 2, but Sabretooth just misses the mark. He's better often replaced with another card, and if you can use him in locations like Death Domain, you can get some free value. You can do some cheeky things with buffing him up and then giving yourself a big, huge, 0-6 play later, but outside of that, he's just better off left on the sidelines. Damn, between him and Wolverine, I get what they're doing for the cards, but they got no love. If Killmonger is the king of the S tier, then Storm might as well be the queen. Her value might not be obvious right away when looking at it, but Storm is elite. Having the power at your hands on turn 3 to close down a location early when you're ready and the enemy is not, she'll massively throw off enemy combos, change unfavorable locations, and set you up for some perfect combos yourself. I go through a lot of my favorite combos with Storm, and I'll link that up above, but essentially, love playing Storm followed up by Jessica Jones for instant value, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the location. Let's move to Vulture and place him in the B tier. Pool 2 is by far going to be where he shines the most, and again, his scaling can be very nice in move decks. He's virtually useless outside of move decks, but if you can power him up, you're essentially creating a portable nuke. Use them while you can. Welcome to the Jubilee Casino. I would have her in S tier, but the average has her in A tier. Jubilee is just an awesome card and is extremely fun to play with. At a 4 cost, 1 power value, pulling a 6 cost Infinite is a huge dopamine rush. And yes, it can feel bad if you pull a bad card, but you can usually make your deck to be favored for yourself in Jubilee. Jubilee is going to be essential in Pool 2 and especially Pool 3. Again, look out for Kamar Taj or locations where it's hard to play a card. Again, I'll use Death Domain as an example. If you play Jubilee, she'll blow up and die, but the card that she pulls will survive safely. Sandman will be going into the C tier, although I do think he belongs in the B tier as he supercharges a deck that I'll be making a video on later this week. He's a huge disrupt card and a counterplay to plenty of decks out there. Sandman can't hurt you if you're not prepared and don't build the right deck. However, play him in decks with a lot of low-cost cards for maximum benefit. Shang-Chi, the Counter King. Let's put him in the A tier, but he's borderline S tier. I swear people never expect this martial artist to just Alt F4 any high-power card on the enemy side. He's a fantastic card that is one of the best for winning a lot of cubes because when your opponent plays a huge, massive card, they think they've got that location, and then you just delete them with Shang-Chi. Warpath will be in the B tier as a decent card that acts a lot like Namor. If you build a deck that's kind of focused on 2 locations, you can get some nice value out of them. Your opponent's going to be wondering why you left a location all by itself, and you can play cards like Mr. Fantastic and Claw to get the max amount of value. Again, look out for Onslaught Citadel for some crazy combinations power-wise, and he can fit into some decks. I swear Hobgoblin was solely created to have your enemy just like rip their freaking hair out and retreat. He's an awesome card that can backfire, and we're going to place him in the B tier. What's great about a Hobgoblin is you're not going to be wasting a space on your side, and you'll be filling up an opponent's side very quickly. This often just ruins a strategy that they have. You will have his counterpart, Green Goblin, that's a little bit better in Pool 3, but he's an awesome card to completely mess up the opponent. But if you haven't listened to much yet, pay attention. Do not play him on Kamar Taj. It's going to backfire. Next, we have Leech, who's a tough one to place, but we're going to be placing him in the F tier because even though he's a 5/3, he never quite finds his value. Like, if the opponent has an awesome hand and you get rid of all the abilities, it could be nice, but it can also just, like, screw you up massively. Like, if your opponent has the Destroyer and you play Leech, like, good luck. We have 2 more left, and next is Vision. Vision is interesting. He's a 5 cost 7 power, and he can move, but he doesn't really belong strictly in move decks rather than control decks. I think the thing about Vision that I love that's often overlooked is even though he doesn't have raw power, he has the power to completely mind F your opponent, and you can win a lot of games because your opponent's going to be second guessing themselves. And what I like to do typically is not move him because your opponent's going to think you're moving him to another location, and then you can win the one you play him on. So before we get to the last card and the only 6 cost card in Pool 2, I want to celebrate 2 weeks of Marvel Snap by giving away 6 months worth of a season pass to a subscriber that comments down below their favorite location. Now, I'm doing this for science. I want to see as a community, like, which one is said the most. And if you forgot the locations, I've got a guide up above that goes through every single one of them with tips and then telling you exactly what they do. All right, Infinite. He's going to be going into the S tier for Pool 2 because he is in the top 3 best cards as far as win rate is concerned in Marvel Snap. The guy is a 6 cost, 20 power who pairs perfectly with another S tier card in Sunspot. This guy's just an absolute closer. You can win so many games with Infinite as it's extremely hard to beat a 20 power play. Go ahead and load up the other location with smaller cards and then play down the big boom with Infinite to get the easy W. So there you have it. Here is a look at all of the cards in Pool 2 in one glance. Now, if you want these graphics for the individual cards or the tier list graphic altogether, you can find that in the description below in my Discord. And with that, if you want to catch me live and ask a question or see me play a ton of Marvel Snap, you can go to Cozy Gamer on Twitch. I stream about 3 times a week. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and a huge thanks to the other creators with all of the rankings right here. Both TALKWYN and BYNX are great creators, and I appreciate the collaboration. If you want to go ahead and see their channels down in the description below, go check them out and subscribe. And until that next video, happy snapping.